Hi, everybody, and welcome back for our Fida Awards commendation debate discussion. We're joined by some great artists this evening. It could be the morning in some places. And this was the Fame and Fortune Award, which was a particularly interesting award. The artists, I guess, looked at what was happening on the red carpet, in magazines, in the celebrity world. And I guess the results were a little bit different than we expected. We thought there'd be more celebrities, but then, we saw a few of the Kardashians, obviously, but it was interesting to see the selection of celebrities, or what people perceived as celebrity today. So I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to jump straight into sharing my screen so we can see this lovely work. Oh, I'm trying to share slideshow. Okay. So, Fame and Fortune Awards. One of the winners was Joanne. A great piece. You probably saw she spoke the other day. That sort of, I guess, interesting formed body, black and white with this interesting pose and composition. We spoke to Joanne the other day. So it's interesting to hear what you guys have got to say, because you had different visions and different voices and created some really interesting work. So I guess first of all, we'll start sort of on a running list. Is Desiree? I can see you on here. If you just want to quickly explain about your journey into the fashion illustration world, and then move into explaining your piece of work.
Hi, yes. Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Desiree. I live in Germany. I'm relatively new to the fashion illustration world, I must say. Because of my new orientation, career-wise, I started all over again with my fashion design studies, and during my years, I had this great course with fashion illustration, which really caught me. And last year, I stepped into my first Fida course and tried to evolve my style. I'm still developing and trying new techniques. I'm learning and learning and learning. And this Fida competition is a very great opportunity and chance for me to push me and my my techniques. And I was very happy to see all these categories this year, and also the category Fame and Fortune was something I really wanted to develop something, because this is a theme or a category which is not only which not only has positive feelings, or it also has it gave me kind of a negative mood, I must say. It all comes with the dependency, I must say, with the fame, and if you decide to be famous or not, is it the first choice or the priority in what you're doing? And I was researching for that one, and I found a very interesting picture, a photograph, and it really caught my attention, because this was kind of the mood I felt right away when I saw the photo or the picture. I must admit, I don't know if this was a set-up photo or not. Maybe I'm a bit naive, but for me, it just made me think about, yeah, this is exactly the feeling. So the first one on the very left, this was my approach. I tried to find a way to show her in this light, smooth body form, and you see all the cameras, the paparazzi capturing the trying to catch her and they come very close, and she kind of rejects them but needs them, so she's dependent on them. And yeah, I try to play a bit with my my colors, and yeah, you can see that I decided to show the hand of the photographers very pinkish, like almost, I would say in this environment, almost toxic. So they are almost, they can touch her, but they don't, and come very close. Yeah, it's a game. It's kind of rejection, and but still she needs them. So this was my approach, and I'm very happy to be considered here to show my work. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and someone else had tackled this piece as well, and I
Yes.
saw it, and it was just interesting, like the idea, like when you think of Warhol with Elvis and Marilyn Monroe, and all the sort of Richard Hamilton doing the Rolling Stones with Mick Jagger, where there's a famous picture of him being in the car being arrested, and what when we were coming up with the ideas for this category was really thinking about the negative and the positive of fame and fortune, and how a lot of the illustrators who communicate with us are really, unfortunately, maybe desiring the fame and fortune of being a famous illustrator, which is great, but that can come, as we see, there's highs and lows to being a great person in your field. And I think you know what I found fascinating, and it's really nice to hear your thought process of the colors of the hands with this sort of toxic color, this really rich pink, and that's even enhanced the idea and the concept behind it. And I think that's really an amazing sort of thought process, because we were talking yesterday about how sometimes fashion illustration of the past could feel a little bit superficial, a little bit empty. And now I think fashion illustration is getting smarter. It's got a lot deeper. And I think a lot of illustrators not only are encapsulating narrative in it, but they're also thinking deeper. They're thinking about art. They're thinking about art history. They're thinking about fashion, costume, composition. So it's an overload of information and data within a very counterculture world. And I felt that fame and fortune, it was really interesting to see how different people tackled it and looking at the negatives and the positives behind it. And I remember reading in a book about Jean Cocteau was saying in the 1920s, people all said to him, how do I become a famous artist? Even in the 1920s. So if you imagine, nothing has changed. It shows celebrity and fame is so important. So it was a really interesting one, and it was really nice to see your blend of colors. The composition's good, the arm's really interesting, and the cameras and that whole atmosphere, I think you captured really well. And you know, I think this one really resonated, and I've seen your sort of journey as well. So it's nice to see you sort of tackling this, because it's full of ingredients. It's like a cake full of bits of details and all these lovely ingredients that make up this great cake. So it was a great piece, and you know, I was really happy to see you getting selected and this piece being sort of rewarded for it. So well done, Desiree, and congratulations. And I'm very impressed. Okay.
Thank you so much.
So next on the list is Tracey Smith. Well, there's a few other names on here. So there's Caroline Ritchie's. She's got Graduate Fashion Week today, so she unfortunately can't come. But she did Richard Haynes, this illustration here. So this was quite a nice capture. And seeing someone as a fashion illustrator who is almost like a selfie, as well as she's idolizing an illustrator, which which was great. And you know, I've seen this piece before, so it was great to see her sort of putting this forward. And the other name on here is Stephanie Ripp. I think she's working on a live project today, so it's good to see illustrators being busy as well, and having to not being able to attend and trying to sneak us in. But she did some great, you know, these great sort of portraits, and Anna Wintour, which I thought was a great profile, and you know, easily recognizable. So that was a great piece by her. And Carmen Chofre, it's got a very sort of iconic 60s feel to it. Gerard Lang, I don't know if you know Gerard Lang, he used lots of circles in his printmaking. So, and he did lots of pop art. So he was one of the pop fathers who came, Gerard Lang. I think he's still alive just about, but he's got some master prints, and it reminded me of his work. You could probably go to Tate Britain and see some of his work. So moving on to, I thought I'd mention them because they couldn't attend due to Fashion Week and so on. So next was Tracey Smith. Tracey, I think we can see you somewhere. There we go. I can see your lovely face. Let me just move this.
You see the piece.
There we go. It's over there. Okay, so Tracey, explain a little bit about yourself, your journey, and also about the piece you submitted.
Yes, hello everyone. So I have a fashion design background. I studied fashion design and worked as a fashion designer for many years. And then I actually had a few years of not working in fashion at all until COVID hit, and that really made me start to think about what I was doing. I'd always, even when I wasn't working in fashion for a few years, I always was attending life drawing classes and drawing and painting just as a hobby, just as something I really enjoyed. And I'd always thought that fashion illustration was something I would like to do, really. And I've done little bits and pieces in the past, and particularly when I was a fashion designer. So when COVID hit, I sort of, as many people did, had a bit of a life change and thought I need to go back to what I love and what my passion is. And so I started, my family and I all moved to New Zealand during COVID. So we had a lot of time. I had a lot of time there to just concentrate on drawing, painting, and building up a sort of a portfolio, really, which is what I did, and started entering the Fida competitions and connecting with other illustrators online through Fida, which was brilliant. So now I'm trying to concentrate on doing illustration full time. So
and the piece you submitted.
So the piece I submitted, Jared Leto. What Desiree said about the negative aspects of fame and fortune resonated with me there, but I sort of was looking more at the kind of fun element to it. What I like about this image of Jared Leto is he's not taking it all too seriously either. He's brought his own head to the awards, and I liked the contrast between I wanted to try and really exaggerate the contrast between his human head and his fake head, because actually in reality the fake head was much more realistic than I've drawn it. I think it was actually quite good, but I sort of wanted to exaggerate that, and maybe like the false image that famous people put across. And then also the context was at the Met Gala, and I'm really interested in what's going on behind the famous person. So in this case, it's obviously a bank of photographers, but they're not actually taking photographs of anyone at that moment, because he's got his back to them and they're waiting for the next person to come along. And I just really felt I had to put that in there to give the context. And sort of I'm really fascinated by drawing people who aren't posing, really, which these people aren't. So yeah, that's my image.
And just as you were talking there, I remember them doing the Gucci show, and they were talking about twins. And
Yeah.
I just looking at this headpiece, I'm wondering if it represented his beheading of being the head of Gucci, and he knew he was going to lose his job. And I wonder if it was a sort of up yours to Gucci, saying, "I know my head's going to be cut off."
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought
Alessandro Michel, yeah, because him and Jared later dressed as twins, didn't they, together?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's a sort of a play there between his head being cut off and I'm thinking of the film with Jim Carrey where he plays the Man on the Moon film, where there's a guy in disguise, and I wonder if there's like many hidden narratives behind
layers to it. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I'm sure there are. There's a message there. Really,
there's got to be messages.
Yeah. There is a message there. I agree.
And we probably we're unwise to it, but as you become a stronger designer, you hide little quirky things in there, little stories. There was a great illustrator who came to one of my lectures when I was at Kingston, and he said that he used to get complaint letters into the newspapers saying, "Oh, this illustration's really bad," and so he started to write their names in all the posters on the artworks and write their complaint letters. So they obviously got really angry seeing their names in the work. And so an illustrator could be a bit more tongue-in-cheek and play, like you were talking about, the fun side of it. And I remember when AI was first starting was coming into well, I guess the forefront of, you could type in a word and an image came up. And one thing I always was interested in was seeing how the cartoonists in the UK could use AI, or well, not use AI, but how would someone like Ralph Steadman illustrate a fashion illustration show? And I just thought how fascinating it would be, Jared Scarf, these old amazing illustrators looking at fashion in a very grotesque way. Almost it needs a little, because and that's always resonated with me, that I posted something once and I got a lot of negative feedback about the work, that this isn't fashion illustration, it's terrible and it looks like a child's work, and it made me more defiant. So with regards to the work that we post and we show, we really love to see this sort of whole eclectic mix, an array of work. So it isn't always about it being perfect. Someone said about that yesterday, they're finding the beauty in the ugly, which is like, think of Prada and brands like that. It was really poignant about that. So with your work, and you're thinking about this grotesque head and the image in the background, and what I like about your work is that it's fearless, and I think that's what resonates for me. It's the fearlessness of it. And as time moves on, because people always talk to me about the commerciality of work. And I feel that when I look at this array of work here and we think about the commerciality, what is commercial work? And I think as fashion illustration gets stronger and more important, we're starting to see Jessica Bird and people like that getting more work, where before maybe it didn't feel right. It felt a bit too arty, or a little bit, it was words that I always heard about my work. So it's always nice to see your work, Tracey. And I feel this sort of documentary side of your work will really, it will come through. And I know instant success is not the way forward for all of us. So I think passion will always win. And it's just defiance as well. So, when I see your work, I feel this real courage and bravery to it. And I know you've got secret fans out there as well. So people tell me stuff. So it's good news, and they're all over the place. So it's good to see strong work that's fearless. And no, it was a great piece, and the colors are great, and I've seen the sort of growth from the crits as well. From the last crit, I think that was your sort of eureka moment in my eyes, of where work's sort of going towards and moving and doing it at pace and putting yourself under pressure. I think that's what the awards are kind of. They're like a pressure. There's lots of pressure on you to deliver. To win is weird. I think winning is a really strange one. So I you know, it is who it is, and we get loads of strange feedback of who should win and who shouldn't win, and we get some really sort of hard comments. So it doesn't mean that the best man's won or the best woman's won. It's just that was the most selected piece. So I don't always feel like, and I always wonder, would I enter the awards? Would I have the courage to enter my own awards? Because the amount of it's tough. It's tough, and
I don't know if you've noticed, I always enter them right at the last minute because I never think I'm going to have anything good enough. At the last minute, I go, "Come on, do it! You've got to do it."
90% of everybody is everyone rolls in on the last day.
Yeah. I'm sure.
It's just that courage moment of do it, and I found a little bit of time to do it, and you know, it is kind of a good place to put yourself in, and then you kind of back in this conversation. So it is kind of nice to get involved. But excellent, thank you, Tracey.
Thank you.
So Nikole, on to your piece. Rather than me talk, I'd like to hear your thought process. You know, because I've seen your work quite a lot, and I'd like to hear about you, about your journey into fashion, and also about the piece that you created.
Well, hi everybody. I'm from Panama. I live here now. I went to school. I studied art in a small college in Washington, D.C., like 12 years ago. And then in the pandemic, well, I'm a jewelry designer also. So during the pandemic, I just started painting again and started doing all this fashion illustration because I like fashion, and started experimenting with gouache and watercolor and all that stuff. So I think Fida had a lot to do with like my artistic journey, because I think I've entered last year's contest and this year's contest, and I like the environment, and I like that everybody does, you know, loves fashion and illustration. So that was great, because here in Panama we don't have much people that does fashion illustration. So my piece, I work on this tone tan paper as Strathmore paper, and it's like 300 grams. So I can like put a lot of water onto it, a lot of material onto it, and I work very intuitively. Like I don't think about it beforehand, I just work. And but this piece was a little bit hard for me because I had to portray somebody that, you know, that everybody knows. So I saw this picture of Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. I think I like them so much because I grew up with them, you know, their movies and stuff. So I kind of, and they have a very like the way their eyes look and the way they pose for the camera. So I found this picture, I think it's Bruce Weber for Vogue Germany, and I found it striking. So I'm like, I'm gonna do that, and I did it 2 days before the deadline, and I have it right here. I don't know, I can't see myself talking, so I don't know if you can see the work.
We can see you. Oh, right, it's a nice size as well.
Yeah, it's like 18 by 24 inches, and it's very like I don't know how to say it. I just paint. So I do like a light wash of watercolor, and I usually do it in like greens, or I don't really do flesh colors, but I don't know, it's what comes up. So I did like a light wash of watercolor, and then I started working, I think, with wash. And then what did I do next? I grabbed, when you mix acrylic with wash, it makes a really like interesting texture. So that was really fun. And the piece has like all these really nice washes, and I like imperfection. So, I mean, there's paint sprinkled all over. And then at the end, I did neo colors. So I used neo colors for the hair, and I used an oil stick which I've never used before, this pigment stick. I don't know, I can't see myself. But I use that for the background, which I've never done before. But I'm really happy with the piece, even though it's something that I struggle with because I had to draw it beforehand, and kind of stick to the measurements and the figure drawing to be kind of perfect. I usually just go big. So yeah.
No, it was a great piece, and you know, when you're talking about these greens, and it has that very sort of seaweedy feel to it, with the colors, and I can feel a bit of Bruce Weber photography with the sort of new romance feel, like this sort of death romance. You know, there's always a hidden story in Bruce Weber's work, and I you know, this piece really worked well, and it's nice to see you mixing gouache and acrylics and oil sticks and pastels. You know, that sort of mix of all these different mediums to give you different textures, and you know, it's a shame we can't just look at it huge and kind of and really get the grit, because I know on Instagram you kind of show a little bit of the making of, so it's nice to see. You know, when I see these works up and I see people posting it and sharing it and then showing a little bit behind the scenes and the journey, I feel that's the most fascinating part of what actually people are doing on Instagram, is this sort of the storytelling behind the works in process, the studio work. And I really feel that this was a great piece, and you know, the approach to it, and this very sort of artistic mark making, very loose, and still not too detailed on the face. Yeah, you've still kept it quite almost impressionistic looking as a style. And I know in your work you have this, and you know, you haven't and you've knocked them back. So if you kind of squint your eyes, the clothes have the high contrast, and the faces are very muted with very mid-tones. And I really like that. So you could have had a bit of fear to get the faces a little bit more like a higher contrast, and I don't think it would have had that sort of dreamy feel to them. And they feel like and if you look at them, they actually look like a heart. Just looking at it now, their actual heads make a heart. So that I just spotted that you know, these sisters and growing up with them, and you know, I'm just thinking of someone like Miley Cyrus, or it would have been nice to tackle someone like her as well, who was quite hardcore, and she's gone through a massive journey of change, Miley Cyrus, and so have these two. You know, I kind of knew them a little bit through my sisters because they were a little bit younger than me, but I remember them coming through and getting a lot of pressure. I'm not too sure if one of them is married to George Condo. Is that right? Do you know?
Well, I think one of them used to date George Condo.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone knows George Condo. He's an older artist, very famous. I don't know why. But there's obviously some sort of love of the arts. But you never know why people date or go out with these people. Maybe it's his mind or something. I don't know. I couldn't work out the match, but there's always these strange matches anyway. But Nikole, a lovely piece, and it's nice to see your face, because I've seen your work so much and sort of seen a bit of a journey for you, you know, as you said, through COVID and entering the awards, and it's nice that you've got a bit of recognition for this piece. So it was a really interesting piece of work, and you know, I was happy to see it being selected and got accommodation for it. So well done, and you're lucky.
Thank you so much.
And you're in Panama as well. How lucky are you?
It's very hot.
It must be very. The UK is not so bad at the moment. We're getting some good weather. Okay, so last but not least, Maria. I saw you jumping off screen or jumping back. Hopefully everything's okay. Yeah. So if you just want to explain a little bit about, I guess, your journey into fashion, and then your your final piece that you created, and explain, you know, why you selected this piece and what it's about.
So, hi everyone, I'm Ria. I have been drawing since I was a little child and always very fashion focused, and until like a couple of years ago, I didn't even know such a profession like fashion illustrator existed. And then I stumbled upon Fida, I drew dot, and then I realized, oh, I'm doing fashion illustration already. And as a teen, I always wanted to be an artist, but my parents did not really like that idea. So I ended up being an engineer. So my background is really technical. My drawings were very, very like academic and precise. So I have always been trying to create a style that is more expressive and captivating. And I struggled with that a lot. So in the piece I submitted, I drew a moment from the last Gucci collection before the new creative director took over. So I really, the look really captured my attention because the model had like this red bright hair and the furry coat, and they had such a strong contrast that I immediately thought of the book of color combinations by Sans Sawada, and I really had this combination red, blue, and slightly yellowish green in mind, and I really wanted to capture that moment. And the model's expression, I kind of wanted to be you know, when fame and fortune gets to your head, like kind of demeaning, little arrogant, like also not the toxic or bad side of it, like when you don't want to be recognized, like these 90s models attitude.
Yeah, no, I guess what's quite interesting from some of these pieces, like if we look at the mix of them, is like the color combinations. Some have very muted tones, some have these sort of electric reds, the red and the blue. You know, even if you think of Jasper John's American flag with the really striking red and the blue, you know, they're the sorts of things that bounce into my head, is how these sort of illustrations abstract. And you know, you were talking about even Joseph Albers, the interaction of color comes to mind for me for color. And you know, and her sort of deadpan face, I liked her deadpan face. I thought that was a really nice move, and that sort of hand coming in, and it's sort of a sort of a moment capture. And I think that's quite important. Is some could feel like Desiree saying, was it staged? Where with yours, it's kind of documentary of the moment, snapshot. And then almost like it could be when they're doing the looks and they're getting Polaroids and they're doing shots. They're the sort of things that when I saw yours really pumped out at me. And it really says fashion. It says fashion in a different way, you know, because we have these very art practice based ones, and then you have documentary, and then you have sort of a little bit, I can feel a bit of commercial side into here as well. So in a commercial point of view, I think this would really sort of resonate with the commercial people, because you know, it's quite beautiful and has these really nice graphic colors. So you think graphic, and it just has a very different approach. So it was quite nice when, you know, we're putting them together and you see that stark yellow image next to yours with these reds and the blues, these sort of primary mix of colors. And I think it's fascinating to see the sort of array of work. And it was a great piece. And I think for you, you know, you've sort of danced around with your work. As I look on Instagram, I can see there's a whole play of work of doing this and trying that and experimenting. I think you're finding your feet all the time, and you know, and enjoying fashion. You know, you have a passion.
Yeah, I
for
do.
fashion.
Thank you.
I know that just from even when you came to London. I missed you, but you managed to get in, and you know, all credit you kind of fought your way in and you ultra planned yourself. So that was really like I thought credible of you. So it shows like I wanted it to happen. This must go forward, and I think this illustration really sort of celebrates that. So it was great to see
Thank
your
you.
piece selected. So I was really happy. So overall, I think a great series of work. As I said, I like to keep these quite short, so when people watch them, they can whiz through them and enjoy them. And it isn't a big portfolio debate. It's more about us having a little insight into all of us and seeing the work. But yeah, no, a fantastic selection of work, all very different, all very sort of, as we say, diverse. So it's nice to see these diverse styles in there. And hopefully, you know, every competition that we have or every prize that we think about is just getting you to think outside the box. I know lots of universities are now giving the students these briefs to do as external briefs. So I think there's some sort of credible outcomes that come from the universities. So thanks for coming. Go and enjoy your dinner if you have to race off, and have a good evening, and thanks for coming along, and I'll see you all very soon, hopefully. Have a good night. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.